So, around 2 weeks ago, Capcom dropped the long-awaited beta test for Monsterhunterwilds, and I put a combined 12 hours into it, give or take. And if there's one thing I can confidently say about it, it's the following. These guys cooked. Since this game is more of a sequel to Monster Hunter World, let's talk about the biggest differentiator to the last Monster Hunter game, that being Monster Hunter Rise. The environment. The way the Monster Hunter team added additional depth to the environment is truly a sight to see. The new and improved environmental interactions. Allowing you to directly trigger environmental hazards without having to rely on slinger ammo is a big improvement in my eyes. The newly added weather system is an absolute game changer as well, even if it might have been a bit overtuned in the beta. Like you were going through an entire day and night cycle in like 10 minutes. They better adjust the cycles for the full release because I'd rather not be flashbanged by the rising sun after starting my night hunt at 10 PM. The more interesting change from the new weather system is the addition of area-specific weather cycles though. Each area has an exclusive weather condition which will affect the environment in various ways. The new desert region, for example, has a stormy period where a thunderstorm will sweep the entire map. During this period, lightning will strike at random parts of the map, which will damage the players and monsters alike. The condition of monsters and players matters here as well, since with the new system, standing in a body of water will, for example, make lightning strikes a lot more deadly. I could go on and on about the environment, but let's get into what you will be facing in said environments. Fighting monsters has never felt better in my eyes due to Capcom's expertise at crafting new and interesting monsters to fight. I for one have categorized all 4 monsters that were available in this beta into 3 tiers. Let's begin with the first tier, the fodder tier. Cheddar Cabra. If there's one clip I could use to describe this monster, it would be the following.
This nigga is trash!
This guy is essentially the Great Jaguars of the Monster Hunter Wilds. If you hit this guy with one good swing, he will fall over like a sack of potatoes. Like, not gonna lie, I felt bad for this motherfucker after he fell down to the ground struggling to get up for the 8th time in one fight. Like, I just don't have the words. This nigga is trash! Next up is this guy can scrap tier. This is the tier that monsters that can actually fuck you up if you don't pay enough attention get put into. For this beta, these would be Doshuguma and Badahara, with the former being much more of a menace than the later. Doshuguma is the perfect introduction to the new pack mechanic they've added in Wilds. Some monsters like Doshuguma will be posted up with the squad at all times and will quite literally jump your ass if you try and fight them. If you don't want to end up looking like flippin' Mahito when fighting these monster packs, there's a simple solution for that. The old reliable Duru pots. Firing a dung pot at a pack of monsters will have them scatter like bugs after lifting a rock. This allows you to fight your target monster without interruptions. The jumpings, however, are nothing in comparison to Doshuguma's fuck-ass unblockable move he always pulls up when I'm blocking, man. If I had $1 for every time this nigga hit me with that move, I'd have more dollars than I'd be proud to admit. So, moving on. Next up is the final tier, but this tier can essentially be explained in this single image. This image alone should tell you what kind of threat level we're dealing with here. Raydao, a wyvern that uses the horns on his head as a railgun to shoot bolts of lightning at his targets. Wait, do you smell that? Because it smells like someone absolutely cooked here, my guy. Like a dragon that uses his horns as a railgun? How do you even come up with that? I kid you not. The first time this nigga absolutely smited me with his railgun blast, I was just sitting there like,
That's what I'm talking about. This shit means something to me, man.
This fight was great on every level, from the sound design to the way the monster moved. It was just peak on every single level. Raydao really shut up my list of favorite monsters big time during the beta. I mean, he still ain't beating my favorite monster, the airborne safety hazard Bagel, but he is definitely one of my favorites already. But since we're things shooting up my list of favorites, let's get into the new weapon changes. This is exactly what I've been waiting for in the next Monster Hunter. It's just that great. From the new expanded weapon movesets to the reworked new wound mechanic, that's not nearly as gameflow breaking as the previous one in World. Instead of having to use stinger grappling to create wounds, they now appear naturally in monsters after causing enough damage on body parts. Coupling that with the new moves specifically made to quickly break existing wounds for high damage and stun opportunities makes this wound rework an amazing evolution from the previous system. The level of organic evolution here is just mind-boggling. But let's get more into the weapon changes, because golly, am I excited to talk about them. Every new Monsterhunter game expands all weapon movesets, and while a certain weapon definitely receives more attention than any other weapon in the series, I'm looking at you, Longsword, every weapon still got meaningful additions that most fans are happy about. I mean most fans. Definitely most, but don't talk to them Insect Glaze fans though. Their weapon changes are a bit more controversial depending on who you ask. So you better stay clear of them. They're going through it right now. The new systems affect every weapon, like the previously mentioned wound system and the new wound breaking moves that every weapon received. Some monsters' moves also create weak points after they use them, which these new wound breaking moves can be used on as well. This really incentivizes learning the monster's movesets and positioning yourself accordingly even more than before. I myself play quite a few weapons, but my mains are definitely the switch axe and the gun lance. While the former received some good changes, the latter got some downright godly new additions. The switch axe now has a few ways to parry monster attacks in both axe and sword mode, but the real kicker is the newer full release slash. A sword move that gets even stronger when the sword is in the amped state, and my lord, does it feel good to pull that one off. Even after playing the beta for a few hours, I still really need to get down how to properly get that slash off. But I'm a big fan of the fact that the switch axe now isn't only about getting to the zero-sum discharge now. However, the real star of the show is the gun lance, because they did an absolute masterclass with this one. The biggest problem with the gun lance in my eyes always was the ginormous amount of commitment you had to make to get decent damage out of it. If you don't use the full burst combo, your only other option is to use a charged chilling playstyle, which is a lot safer and to some extent more efficient in terms of DPS, but can get quite boring after 10-20 hunts, to be honest. In Wilds, however, the new and improved full burst combo is now finally worth taking that commitment on. And this shit is so fire. And in addition to that, the full burst combo now has higher damage and less commitment due to the addition of guard points during reloads. Yep, Capcom has finally blessed us gunlance users with guard points during the beginning of every reload animation, which is absolutely huge. If you don't know what a guard point is something like a guard effect that is applied for a short duration during specific attack animations for some weapons, and automatically guards an attack if you're attacked at that moment. The gun lance only had a single guard point during the Wormstake Blast reload animation, but the added guard points during reloads makes a more aggressive playstyle on gun lance that is actually high damaging finally possible. Now committing to full burst is finally a viable option instead of having to only rely on charged shots to stay somewhat safe during your hunts. The new and improved Wyvern Fire that now features 2 charges, longer range, and a much faster execution and cooldown is an incredibly welcome addition to the kit as well. Now the payoff for committing to that attack is finally worthwhile in more situations than when the monster is about to get up from a knockdown. But that isn't even everything, no, because the Monsterhunter team finally reworked the shelling system so that the shelling damage scales off your attack value instead of doing fixed damage for every shelling level, which previously couldn't be boosted with anything other than deco skills. When I saw these changes, dog, I fell down to my knees because I couldn't handle the beauty I was witnessing at that moment. I cannot believe how they cooked this hard, man. Mainland Tina pouring honey on you, my goats. No one does it like you guys, I'm afraid. This shit is just so damn peak.
Get off that nigga dick, bro. What is you doing?
While I certainly love most of what I've experienced in the beta test, unfortunately, it wasn't without its faults. Namely, I played this game on my PS5 and PC with the 3060 Ti and the 5600X. And yeah, I ain't even gonna sugarcoat it. This game runs like absolute booty butt cheeks. The performance mode on PS5 is averaging 45 FPS and looks like someone smeared Vaseline on the screen. And my PC averaged around 40 FPS with dips into the low 20s on medium settings at 40p. Capcom really needs to work on the optimization for this game, because it doesn't matter how hard they push the envelope if barely anyone can play the game as it was intended to be played. The TGS footage that they released gives me hope that they've already worked out a lot of the performance issues. The footage Capcom showed was the PS5 version of the game running in essentially locked 60 in the Scarlet Forest region of the game, which with all of its vegetation should be more taxing on the system than the barren Windward Plains. The game can definitely not release in the state it was shown off in the beta, so I hope that this is the case. My only other concern for Wilds is that they've been a bit cagey during interviews when it comes to the implementations of microtransactions in the game. This is a topic I've covered in my previous video on Wilds, so I won't rehash the entire video, but I hope that Capcom doesn't go overboard with the microtransactions. So yeah, this were my impressions of the Monster Hunter Wilds beta, and man, I really can't wait for this game to release. This was the Teo, and February the 28th can't come soon enough.